Welcome back, Zan.
Hello.
Welcome back, everyone, to the podcast. Um, as we said last time out, I think we should do a part two to the whole how to build and maintain a thriving and nourishing social circle wherever you live or wherever you find yourself. So I'm going to go through some of the comments and the questions that we received from last week.
Oh, okay.
And the first one, seriously, I had chills hearing of the Casa Amorata law. I need more of this energy in my life. So, I mean, I remember at the end of the last episode, you were quite impacted actually by
Yeah.
going back down memory lane, and I'm curious how, yeah, you left the episode quite reflective. So I wonder how those thoughts and feelings have been cooking in you since we last spoke.
Well, it just made me realize the massive volume of memories and adventures that we created, that we had over these years. And it and because I'm now resident in Bucharest and ensconced in my studio and sitting in a rocket chair a lot, feels like man, those wild west days of traveling the world and hitting every country and we traveled with an entourage for years, and I'd kind of not forgotten it, but it's just misplaced my mind, and then it all comes flooding back from our talk last week. It did impact me because you said something, um, and I talked to Deanna about this because you said I'm the one that's saying that I had this idea for Casa Marata, I had this idea for this real cohesive community led um, space, and buying it into a hostel and all the kind of stuff I did over the years, right? And to try and create this place called Casa Amorata that has this place of light and love and beauty and harmony. And we tried variations on it over the years and moved on and did other things. And we always had this stellar goal, and it never felt like it quite like we hit it exactly. There was always something twisted in it that we had to go, okay, wait a minute. But you said something that kind of set me back. You said from us on the outside, when we would approach the Casa Amorata, man, it was glorious. It was everything that that you thought you wanted it to be from the outside. And when I think of it in that perspective, and lift my head up and take a look at it from the side, it was pretty. We had some pretty amazing things. We created some incredible living spaces. We had a lot of joy and a lot of fun and a lot of celebration, a lot of guitars and a lot of um, people coming in and blown away. And it's not stopped. It's just that I feel like I'm in a bit more of a writing phase, and you know, uh, but we really had something magic for the last 20 years. Hans and I, traveled and did all that vagabond stuff for years and years. We were in everywhere, and we met a ton of girls, and girls would join our entourage and be part of our life, and they would be part of our life for a couple of years, and then they'd slowly drift off, get married, but they're still dear friends. We're from Poland to yeah, we were living in a lot of places. So our talk last week made me realize the abundance of stories I have. Like I told the story of the young fine gentleman that followed me around and picked me up at
Mm.
every airport. For 2 years, he picked me up at every airport I went to. I'm going to be in Tokyo. I'm going to be in Montreal. I'm going to be in Los Angeles. I'm going to be in San Diego. Oh, there he is at the airport. Hey, how you doing, man? You got there before me and you picked me up. So, um, and I have a million stories like that to me are interesting stories. So I'm thinking, like, I mean, I talk about these kind of stories when I'm with guys, like in the conference and that we do in Romania and my What Would Zan Do course, etc. I get to know the guys, and we have a lot of stories, and I'm full of stories, man. In fact, I think that the number one thing we are is story driven, and people learn from parables. So, because when I'm doing, as an example, my What Would Zan Do, and we have a theme of mystique, I've got so many stories that as soon as I hear the word mystique, oh man, here's a story. Oh, you're gonna love this one, and here's another one. Oh, and I just reminded of this one, and I forgot about this one. And every single time I do, for instance, What Was Zan Do, I tell a story I've never told anywhere on earth before. I just thought, it's like, oh, I forgot about this one. So it's just, but the whole thing is that. So anyway, that it impacted me a lot because it just came flooding back all the raucous living in the wind adventures we had.
Let's go through some of the
Part of that, a lot of the
let's go through some of the questions. And my aim is to make this practical. And I know for a fact that one of the bigger questions that I receive, particularly from those that go to Bucharest, and particularly those from North America, actually, where the kind of urban suburban car culture gives the whole way of life a different shaping. When you live in Europe, you can get on a bike or everyone with an electric scooter or something now, and you have a lot of proximity to people. But over in North America, there's already, because of the design of the city and the design of the country, people are already a bit more distant from each other. And I hear from a lot of American, Canadian, Amorati, um, they come to Bucharest and they're blown away by this way of life. And the question is,
Mm-hmm.
how can I then take what I've found here and set it up in my hometown? I
Yeah,
want some of this bohemian living where I live. So the first question that came in, I love them. I love these videos. I think the main sticking point I've had is, while I do take part in these kind of communities myself, I find myself as not quite the central figure of it, which is normal.
yeah.
Um, in the past, I've tried to organize stuff, but every time it never quite lands with others. I get talked over, etc. I always wondering if it's something I lack or I'm doing wrong. I'm assuming mainly it's about the energy you radiate when sending out invitations, etc. But I think I'm missing something here. Any advice would be appreciated.
Hmm. Hmm. But I mean, we had our own center of gravity because we were so inwardly. Our conversation was so intensely centered around the Ars Amorata philosophy. In fact, those traveling years is when the articulation of what we've been thinking in our minds has been where it all cleared up the airplane rides and all this kind of stuff where we sit in conversation. And because in all those 20 years, I never did any small talk at all, like about the weather or whatever. Like all the conversations you and I have had are realistically on the level of this podcast. When we're not being filmed, we still talk about this kind of stuff. And me and Hans did the same thing, and it was just edifying. And so we were very insular in that. As we moved around, people would be caught up in into the orbit of that, because around the conversation, not around us necessarily, because we were dedicated to something that wasn't normal. We were what was why we were central is because we were looking up, not out at social people, but we're looking up and trying to understand something up here. And as we're looking up, if you stand on a sidewalk and you look up, and somebody else look up, and it kind of, the crowd follows you. And so we were looking up at concepts and a conversation that was really exciting. And I think others got caught up in the wave of that, because we were not trying to be social outwardly, reaching out and expanding our group. It just naturally happened. So if you don't have something like a conversation like that, or a setting like that, then me I'd be peripheral to another group. So if I went to uh, I, I could be imagined getting invited into a party or an experience where I'm one of the crowd because I got invited too. So it doesn't mean I'm coming in and dominating, taking over the narrative. So, um, but I've always said this: if I was brand new in a city, like pick me up and stick me in Melbourne, I don't know anybody there, not a soul, and I wanted to have a social life. I could go out and meet girls and add them on Instagram and do that whole slogging chore, which is, an 80%, 80-20 rule kicks in, and, and it's a lot of work, and you have to be doing nothing else. If you have a nomad job and you're busy on your job, it's, you can only pick at it at coffee shops and try and do it that way, which a lot of guys do. Or what I would do if I could, I would go to like a lounge or a bar or an event or something, and I would look for the guy who seems to have it all together, not the girls. So I can remember examples of this being brand new in the city. Kelly and I were in Poland, and we went to a bar, and there's the VIP table up there, and there's this blonde Polish guy sitting up there with 6 girls sitting around his bottle table. You got the table with the bottles that he's sitting up there. And Kelly and I looked at each other, and Kelly goes, "That's the guy." So he walked right over, and I can still remember Kelly, reaching out over the bottle table, reaching out his hand, and said, "Hey, you look like the guy I should meet. I'm new. I'm from Canada. I don't know anybody here, and you've got all the girls. You look like the guy that I should meet." In other words, a peer talking to a peer saying, "You're doing something right. I'm honoring you. I'm complimenting you because you've got all the beautiful women. I'm honoring you by letting you know I'm not going to try and sneak one away from you. I'm not going to try and break one off from the herd. I'm like, I have a lot of respect." And that respectful thing and complimenting him. And the guy invited us to his table. He was buying his drinks all night, and he's still friends with us today. This is 8-9 years later. He's still friends with us today, this guy. And so if I wanted a social scene, I would approach the men, not the women, that seem to have some social energy, because the next time they go on their boat, or the next time they have a party, the next time they contact you, "Hey, come join us," and you show them, and then you're now you have a social circle, or now you're part of a social circle. That's how I would do it. If you approach women and try and get social scene by doing that, it's fool's gold, man. It looks real, but
Counting cats, as you would often say.
herding cats. But you find a man and respect him and compliment him and say, "You know what? I should meet you." That's the phrase you use. "You look like the guy that we should meet. What's your name, brother?" Shake his hand. That's respect and honor. And men go, "Those are cool guys. You guys are invited in. This is my wife. This is my sister. This is her friends, etc." And it's wide open, and because it was an honor bound way of approaching, and now you have a social circle, because he's, next time you're a cool guy and you fit right in. You don't try and be sneaky on him, or pretend to try and take one of his girls. That's not disrespectful. And he'll invite you the next thing he does. "Hey, we're going to do this. We're going to go to blah blah blah."
So over
So
a period of time, that will compound massively if you meet
yeah.
more
So
people like this.
to answer this guy's question, we had something that we were drawn, that we were hovering around, which is the conversation and the philosophy that was being articulated. I'm not saying being born, because it was already born and it's ancient. We were articulating something that had been lost. The knowledge base had been lost on this earth for certain. And we were grabbing it and pulling it into the center, and we were all staring at that. And then people were staring over our shoulder. "What are you guys looking at?" That's how it was all these years.
This fundamental dynamic, I feel, is very interesting. I've been part of other communities that also seem to me incredibly vibrant. The kind of communities where you'd show up and you wouldn't quite know what happens. that night or over the course of that weekend. And kind of month by month, it would evolve. And it was really, really the sense of right now, the thing might happen that transforms this or transforms all of us. That there was a sharpened sense of aliveness in the room. And every time I was part of a community like that, it would be because there were two people or maybe a third in the center of it, and they would create the overall dynamic. So where there was one person in the middle of it, this never really happened, because then it would just be how do you say, a socially dominant extrovert or a kind of guru or something like that, and then they would have a circle around them. But where there were two people that were trying to thrash something out, and the energy was actually between them, or when there was three people, all of a sudden you had this dynamic thing, and you didn't know how it was going to evolve, and it was that central dynamic that others then wanted to jump in on. I've
Boy,
seen
that's
this multiple times. Yeah, and people ask me, I mean, a few weeks ago, someone asked me in one of my groups, you know, how do I create this in this period of my life where I'm young and I want to build a social life and go out and meet women and all this kind of stuff? I'm like, well, if you get a good friend who is on the same journey as you, and cares about the same things, and your energy increases when you talk about these things together. You come home and you talk about the things that you're discovering and wondering about, and what's new in your dating life or what's new in some other hobby that you have. um, when those two energies of mutual curiosity come together, something bigger is born. And if you find a friend like that, you have to treasure that friendship for all it's worth, because it can end up becoming this dynamo that creates something bigger than both of you.
yes.
And if you've got a third in that, then the three of you, you walk into wherever you're going, you walk into a place, and you with your one buddy or your second buddy, you walk in, and because you have this thing between you, that is the thing that actually is more attractive than any of you people individually. And it's that shared energy that people want to get caught up in, rather than the just I'm pure attractive as a single figure in the middle of it. So I've
100%.
seen it. Yeah, I've noticed this a lot, and a lot of people don't value, actually, they don't see that or don't understand where it comes from. They don't value the potential friends that they could have that would create this mutual upliftment. But the other thing you said, which I hadn't quite heard articulated before, is you're not looking at each other, or you're not looking at yourself as being the central point of meeting in the social circle. You're looking up at something,
Mhm.
which is the reason that you're gathered in the first place, is because you're trying to articulate this thing, or trying to get to the essence of this thing that you're fascinated by. And it's a big difference between saying, look, I want a casa amorata. I'm smiling because I know that this is the psychological place where people are coming from when they ask this. I want a casa amorata in my city because I want to host an event, and I want people to come into my event and all revel in how fabulous I am. And I want to get all these nice,
Yeah,
guys and women to celebrate me. And when it's my birthday, I want to be the epicenter of a community. And it's, no matter how graceful you are at hosting these events, no much how much money you spend on the art on the walls or the champagne, or you put into your apartment so you can have an apartment that's a gathering place. If it's all about people serving your need to have a community, then you are is missing the point. And I think these people, because I know that there are a hell of a lot of communities based around hosts like this, the value of the community is based on the money that the host throws into the gathering. And
yeah,
so, am I going to go tonight and eat for free and be part of this fabulous thing? Well, the host thinks it's all about him, but is missing the point entirely, which is the reason there was ever any energy gathered around Ars Amorata is because you were with at least one other person trying to
right.
hash something out, and that's what was attractive.
Super.
The pursuit of hashing out, like understanding the central thing.
In fact, I can't thrive in an environment where I'm the central figure. I can't. I
That sounds strange because you
yeah,
have seemed like the central figure
I
for a long
know.
time. You go into Casamata, Zan's telling jokes and playing a guitar. Well, we
Yeah,
would assume that you are a dominant social personality, and everyone would come in, and then, oh, it's because of Zan's epic charisma that everyone comes into the house. you're saying
No, but
it's not.
no, because if it's me holding court
Yeah.
and entertaining, I lose gas. But if it's, for
Uh-huh.
instance, if you're there, I know that you're holding your own. You know, I know if Hans is there, he's holding his own. He's a peer. Like I've had some salons that I've done in the past where there's an assortment of gentlemen there, and they're waiting for me to say something. And we have a theme. The theme of this salon is going to be this. Let's have a great discussion about this. And some of the guys are sitting there slack jawed, just waiting for me to drop a crumb. And I want to be challenged and entertained and thwarted and edified too, you know. And so all the best salons are the ones where the discourse is flowing and everyone is freewheeling, and I'm just a part of it. And we created that with Casa Amorati, like in our space that we lived in. The only people we had people that would migrate in and stay for a month or something, and then he'd sleep on a couch or whatever. I remember when I first met Deanna, I was actually we had an apartment in Bucharest, and Christopher, our lovely Amorati member for 20 years, or one of our coaches, came from Norway, and he needed and stay with us. And I gave him my bedroom. I said, "You have the bedroom. You can sleep in the bedroom. I'll sleep on the floor." So I pulled up the couch from the wall in the living room, and I made on a yoga mat and some sheets and a blanket. I made a bed behind the couch, so I had some modicum of privacy. I slept there for like a few weeks. I met Deanna when I was there, and I didn't have a room, and we still laugh about it today because the first time she ever spent time with me was behind the couch. With all you guys are all in the other rooms, but that freewheeling spirit, and not imagine this, man, because my young self could not bring a girl to my place unless I had the stereo was just right, and the lighting, and I was so concerned about how it looked, that it looked like I'm a thriving adult. And when I met Deanna and some of these early years, man, we had nothing. We had one pair of shoes, slept behind the couch on the floor. The apartment that you and I stayed in, that ratty student apartment that we rented for $300 a month or whatever, $200 a month. The couches and the chairs were so vile that we had sheets covering everything. Remember that? And that's when we had the white party.
Because we needed to use white sheets to cover our vile furniture, so we got everyone to come around in white.
And all the girls came, how many girls there was that came to celebrate you?
13 in my mind, yeah.
It was a terrible apartment, but we didn't care. We were living the life, and we had loved life, and the girls were just caught up in the whole energy of it. So, yeah. So, and I remember when Hans and I in Casa Amorati, we would have people living in the space, and we would do something. Here's something practical for the listeners. Something I called Vespers. I stole the word Vespers from Christian, paradigms. And we had Vespers every night. And Vespers we're doing all this stuff during the day, writing or whatever we're doing during the day. But the whole household comes back together in the evening, whoever's there, visitors, whatever. and you close the day and you open the evening. And so the idea of Vespers was this little ritual we would do. We'd get in, sit around in the living room, whatever, and we'd say, okay, Vespers was this. And we did it for years and years. And I still do it. Vespers was basically this. We go around the circle. If it's your turn to talk, nobody else is allowed to talk. We used to actually use a conch, well, not a conch, but like a talking stick.
Banana.
A banana. That's another story. Yeah, we would do this, and we'd have Vespers, and you go around the circle, and you'd have to say three things. You'd have to say what you're grateful for in this moment of time. You just finished this day. What are you grateful for this evening, as the evening's about to commence? And then the second thing you'd have to say would be what your intentions are for the evening. So if you wanted to watch a movie or you were going to go out or something like that, so people would understand, and maybe there was a cohesion in that. So what your intentions were the evening. So what you're grateful for, what you're thankful for. Number two, what your intentions for the evening are. And the third thing you had to say was that these are my words. You had to end with the soliloquy, these are my words. And then you would pass the virtual talking stick to the next person. And we did this Vespers for years. Hans still does it with his family in Colombia, his newfound family in Colombia, and I still do it too. It's a fun. There's no reason for it except that we invented a ritual because we're starved for rituals and symbols, and we invented a ritual that basically just says let's put away carefully the day, and let's go into the gloriousness of the evening. And it's just I think if families did this, if a father did this with his kids, it takes 7 minutes. Say what you're grateful for today, little Johnny, and what are you grateful for today, little Albert, and little Betty, and what do you intend to do this evening? What would you like to do this evening? And then these are my words. If a family did that, gathered his family around, I think all of our troubles would go away. Society's troubles would go away. But I mean, that's how we did it. We really looked at our space as something that had its own personality in Casa Amorati, which was filled with the conversation of Ars Amorati. And as we're going forward, as well as I do, we have not hung up our spurs on this. We're not resting on our laurels. We're going into a deeper version of. We have the Amorati membership, for instance, which is a virtual gathering. We have the conferences twice a year that we've been doing twice a year, which we've been doing for many, many, many years. And we'd have a bunch of guys come, to these conferences twice a year, and we're going to deepen that. Our plan is to re-deepen the idea of this virtual gathering, real gathering, etc. So, yeah, we're working on some stuff right now. That's what I say.
Okay, so tracking this logically, say I want to have a meaningful community around me where I live. Um, and we're coming to a point where you say it's not about, or it's not wholly about the charisma of the central figure, or the extroversion, or the social dominance, or the enticement, or the seduction, or the material provision of the central figure. It's actually about having a conversation that is bigger than you, that is the excitement of trying to figure something out, or to sit in the energy of something bigger than you with at least one other person who wants to know that as well. This is something that generates kind of an attractive epicenter of a community that many people then will want to gravitate towards.
Yeah,
So,
it's a necessary element. Yeah.
so here's my question. Does that mean when I host soirees in my city center penthouse or in my, bargain basement moldy Airbnb, do I need a theme? Do I need to make up a theme that's going to entice people, or a thing that we're doing together, board game night, etc.?
Yeah.
Or if I, quote unquote, follow my passion, as you say, follow my bliss, um, are we already going to have a conversation that feels purposeful and enlivening to people? And it's that comes along. Is it an expression of living my bliss, or exploring my passion, that becomes that attractive thing?
Yeah. No, I think a consciously chosen experience. I mean, you can come together and just hang out. I mean, we've done a lot of that over the years, right? Glass of wine, some guitars, and just like hang out. Who's here? Who's the new girl who's here? But if you want to have a real strong thing, a real salon feel, like we have Salon Amorati, and we're going to lean into this idea of Salon Amorati going forward in the future. If you really want to lean into that and have something magical, I think you put maybe not a structure so much on it, but a theme or a reason for being. Like even Andy Warhol's factory centered around him, but it centered around art. It was an art space, not just an Andy Warhol space. And so people gathered around, and he brought some creative minds and energies into the space, Basquiat and stuff like that were doing their own enterprises and their own initiatives. They weren't just followers of him. I've always said that there's two types of people. There's satellites and there's planets. Some people are planets and some people are satellites, and some people circulate around, some people don't circulate around anybody. They're planets. And for whatever reason, I had that analogy kind of fleshed out at one time. But I'll show you something quickly. I met this woman at a Roger Scruton event in England, Justine Collada, and she wrote this book, In Pursuit of the Beautiful Soul.
Mm-hmm.
And that's her there. And basically, it's about salon culture and how it was in Germany and France, and how they had these salons with themes. It's the whole thing. A revolutionary solution to overcome the soullessness of modern life. This book explores the untold relationship between the 18th century philosophy of the beautiful soul and the salon culture in which it was enacted. So the Romantic poets, they had the salon culture. This lost humanistic art form of self-cultivation inspires the pursuit of beauty, goodness, and truth in the act of creating a beautiful existence. So they had the historical exploration of the salonières, the ones who would hold the salons, groundbreaking efforts to cultivate beautiful souls through the arts and conversation. She recounts vivid anecdotes which revitalize this vibrant tradition. It's what we're doing, and we didn't know it. And she wrote this book. And I met her. Should bring her to one of her conferences.
Oh, for sure.
Right? But she wrote a whole book about salon culture, and the reason of being of it wasn't just we wanted to have tea or let's all get together for beers on Friday night. There was it was the self-cultivation inspiring the pursuit of beauty, goodness, and truth in the act of creating a beautiful existence. And it was a very real, conscious thing of saying, let's do this. Let's come together and elevate into the conversation of beauty. So you can't just gather. The gathering isn't it. The gathering is a potluck. And you bring your potato salad, that's a gathering. So, this Ars Amorata has been from the beginning and is bound up in this entire idea of the salon and us gathering around a fantastic exploration. And Casa Amorata that we had that we did our best to maximize that reason for being. This is why we're a movable feast and we're traveling around with this caravan and lighting in these different places. We'll light a light here for a while and then we'll light there for a while because people are caught up into that conversation. And that is what that's what I'm trying to write about. That's what our conferences are about. That's what our Amorati membership has been about. So it's this idea that we're trying to recultivate something that's restoring beauty, which is the sub theme of Ars Amorata, and you do that by salon culture. So we have to lean into it heavily.
So this is a jump for a lot of people. So I'm thinking of the person who's been, we hear from frequently. I've been watching your stuff for a long, long time, and then I came to Bucharest for 4 weeks because I wanted to make a kind of pilgrimage to understand what this spirit was because I felt called, and I went there and I had this salon vibe, and I met other people, and now I've come home to my suburban existence where people are very busy and
Right.
value seem more material. and I want to rekindle some of that fire. And so if it's not, if one doesn't do it through brute force of electric personality alone, they do it by actually bringing home a theme. Like I'm coming home from Bucharest and I carry with me the torch of beauty. I want to host a conversation where we explore themes of beauty, goodness, truth, whatever
Yeah.
it is, relationship between men and women, whatever's most on their mind. And I want to have a central theme rather than a central personal charisma as being the guiding light of the community that gathers around me. Um, that can be a tall order for somebody to come back and, you've been watching this philosophy on the internet for a while, and now all of a sudden you want to kick off a conversation around it in your own home.
Mm-hmm.
Surely there has to be some mm, scaffolding, some help, because you're carrying idea, like there's someone who aspires to a particular conversation, but you have to carry the conversation with a particular, or at least enough conviction to get people through the door to talk about it with you. If you want to go and talk about some subject that you like, but you can't really speak about convincingly, um, it's going to be hard for you to have the gravity to bring other people around.
I don't know about that, Jordan,
Okay.
because I think these saloniers that in this book that would create these spaces, they just wanted to foster that conversation. So you don't. It's not like you're pontificating or gonna lead. You might have a million questions about it yourself, but you want to. It doesn't mean that you have to have something accomplished or something to say to attract it. It's like, let's just explore this conversation. What is this feeling? What is the meaning of art? Could you articulate and tell me definitively what art is? No. So, but we could have a salon around it and talk about how art's changed us and how art has changed in our way we perceive it, and nobody has answers, and nobody's leading that and saying, "Oh, here's the real thing." But it's the gathering together with purpose. That's what it is, because we can gather all day long. If you have money, you can have a gathering. You could throw a big party and it becomes legendary, and everybody comes around and remember those times. But that's gathering around something else. That's gathering around the hedonistic feel of the
Hmm.
world. Um, but you could consciously create salons that you want to have this conversation with yourself and with others that you don't know. All of my public speaking is, if anybody knows, if you ever see me do my public speaking, I'm wandering around on stage, scratching my head, going, "Oh, here's something else," because I'm trying to articulate. I'm trying to find it myself, and I'm trying to talk about what I'm trying to understand and learn for myself in that moment. I don't really know. I'm very confidently assured that this is what it is, but I don't really know. And I may not be right, but I'm never in doubt. As the saying
And then it's
goes.
and then it's good fortune if one night you're pontificating and someone comes in from another plane with a different point of view, and they give you something that might answer or challenge some of
Yes.
your questions, and you're like, where did this person come from? All of a sudden, as you said, rocked up into town with their horse, and they put things on the table that
Yeah.
start to challenge my thinking or expand it somehow.
Jordan, like when I do my What Would Zan Do course with the guys, I'm taking notes because somebody will jog something in my mind. And he's just the guy. He's not intentionally doing it, but he'll say, "You know what occurs to me when I saw you do this in the exercise with the girl? It looks like you're part of you was doing this." And I go, "That's it. I never thought of that, but it's exactly that makes the nuance, the difference, because my whole thing is nuance." For instance, an example: when I introduce myself to girls, and because we do exercises in my What Was Andy, right?
Mm.
There's something in me, and I can't really demonstrate it here, but I don't just like, "What's your name?" Shake hand, shake hand. I do that. What's your name again? Betty, and you are Millie, Millie and Betty. Like I'm like this, but I'm reaching into them metaphorically, and I'm reaching out to shake their hand. "Okay, you're Betty. Nice to meet you, Betty. But this hand," and somebody pointed it out because they saw me do it. "This hand is on my heart." as I'm doing it, and it makes all the difference in the world. So as opposed to like, hi Betty, and hi, it's like this. Hi Betty, I'm Zan, and you are. It's because I'm invading space, but I'm signaling that I'm not. And we discussed it for half an hour because the guy said, "You know what I noticed you're doing, Zan? Because I don't even know that I'm doing it." And so the last What Would Zan Do? The guy said this, and it's just like it's firing on all cylinders. That's just a small example of the hundreds of things that come clear when I'm in conversation with somebody like you or Hans, or in a salon, or a gathering with purpose, or I'm doing a training. And yeah, I imagine you get the same thing when you're doing some of your live events or your online events, your master classes and stuff like that, right? Where you go, and I do it when I do my calls. Like I'm doing calls with the Amorati, and I'm asking Anthony, who's co-hosting it with me, or kind of leading it. Anthony, can you please write down what I just said, because I don't want to forget it. Or this guy reminded me of something. So that it's all new. It's all new stuff coming up constantly, and I'm trying to capture it. I've got little tiny post-it notes everywhere of little thoughts and things that I don't want to forget. And
Yeah.
but you need the bouncing ideas off. You need the discourse.
Yeah. I hosted a masterclass over the last year, which was based on movies, and we discussed 16 different films. And, we would watch the film, and I would take some clips out of the film, then we would come back as a group and discuss them. Obviously, we had a problem earlier in the summer with our videos on our site, that everything was
Right.
frozen and suspended because we had a problem with our video provider. They're being restored now. But for a period, we didn't know if we were going to get our videos back. And the
Yes.
first thing that hit me like a dagger in the heart was all the work we did on the movie course is gone. So I've got some masterclasses, all pre-recorded videos. I've saved them all, but the ones that we did, and it struck me, the thought that we did it, because even though I was leading the course and putting the conversation on the table, it would not have been what it was if it wasn't for everyone else who put their work into it. And some people watched all the movies twice because they didn't just want to watch it once. They wanted to really, have real things to say that they could bring to the conversation. We
Right.
achieved a greater level of work that would have been achieved if it was a one-man show. So I was gutted at the thought of losing something that was provided into from so many different angles. And I think part of the magic of that masterclass, hopefully you can, even if you kind of catch up in retrospect, you can feel that actually all the people that are committed to nearly every call, they're all humming and bringing something into the conversation. It was really a salon
It
feel
adds to,
throughout.
it adds to your own knowledge. Like I'm fascinated by the calls I have with guys, because the question that comes in, and then the attempted articulation and answering it, and then it further and something comes clear that wasn't
So
clear before.
let's come back to the man who's just traveled home from Bucharest, and he's looking at his enormous suburban city and thinking, God, how do I get that proximity around me, and how do I do this? It seems, actually, thinking about your Casamara days, that there was a dual level of invitation. And one of the levels of invitation is, it's Thingamajig's birthday, or we're having a party at ours, come around, there's going to be girls, there's going to be guys, come. And you would give a let's say, more superficial seeming invitation to a party, to a
Sure.
space, to a hedonistic night with no deeper meaning or energy or conversation to it. And I know that for sure because, went out into the club and put out those invitations. So did the rest of us. Bring girls around, bring people, invite people into the space. So that's for sure. But then there was the other conversation, which is, your whole thing with Casamara wouldn't have existed in the first place if you weren't trying to hash out your ideas, your philosophical interests with like-minded people, right?
That's right. The
So
other,
if people come to the party superficially, they soon discover, how do you know each other? Why are you all friends? Why are you in Romania? Blah, blah, blah. They soon start asking questions that point to the deeper level of invitation is, we're all here interested in beauty, relationships, philosophical conversation, place in the world at these times. And they're like, oh, wow, these are not just superficial wine drinking guys. There's something more to the story here, right? So they discover that. But alternatively, you might invite people into the salon energy, and they come to the salon a little bit, and after a while it's like, well, such and such has got a birthday party, we're playing poker, and they come around to poker. There's no philosophy on the table. It's just whiskey and poker and jokes and bad jokes and guitar songs and fucking around. And then it's like, well, I came for the philosophy, but I ended up in this social circle where we celebrate our birthdays. So it's quite interesting that it's not just how to build a social circle. Let's have a philosophically meaningful salon every single week, which you can. But there's also the social track, and people might get invited into your social whirlwind and then end up on the philosophical. Some people come for the philosophical, end up on the social whirlwind.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and there's variations on the theme, right? There's gradients, I think, between all that. But there's a lot to be said for coming together for the poker and the fun, and then hanging out. But I'm not trying to disparage that or say everything has to have meaning. Maybe there's no meaning. We're just like, let's hang out. Yeah.
So right. I mean, thinking back to the Gertrude Stein's house in the 20s, all these writers and artists would come over from North America and try and be part of this salon on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
But then 6 nights a week, Fitzgeralds and so on are getting on their taxi and they're going up to Montmartre and getting drunk. Like, let's just go where the jazz band's playing. Let's just go where I heard there is a thing over here. So the other 6 nights of the week where the deep, meaningful salon is not taking place, everyone is meeting in the cafe, getting drunk, fighting with each other, creating this, being bad, backpacker, wanderer types.
They didn't know that they were part of some kind of movement that would be named later. They had no idea that they were part of some, like when the Impressionists came together in 1890s and 1880s in France, these painters started to just paint impressions as opposed to the realism. They had no idea, and they didn't come together for that reason, and they had no idea that it was going to be named Impressionism, and that years later we would talk about them as a category, and here's where these were the protagonists of this, and they had no clue. They were just trying to fit in and pick up a girl, and they looked over each other's paintings and said, well, I'm going to do my own version of that. So, the tide raises all the boats. And so and the reason that they all went to Paris then, and the writers in 1920, Virginia Woolf, James Joyce, Hemingway, all these writers came to, like Fitzgerald, like you said, and Gertrude Stein was kind of the linchpin of the whole thing. She, bought all Picasso's art and Braque's art, and she nurtured these fledgling writers. I remember there's a Canadian writer wrote about his experience going in 1920. He was 19, and he heard about this buzz that was going on in Paris, so he went there, and he wrote about his experience. But the real reason that they all went there in the 1890s and there's because Paris at the time was a place where you could get really cheap accommodation. So the starving artists went there in the 1920s of that, and then it became mythic, and then it became people say, oh, I heard that the Hemingway and all these people are there, so they all kind of drifted over there. But before that, it was, where can I live in this world and be, for a few pennies and scrape by doing my art? And that's why Paris was the place.
Well, it was a confluence, because you had cheap lodgings, but you also had the sense it was the number one place in the world for art. Like the new waves that were emerging through were all happening in the city. So for over 50 years, it was the epicenter of the world's buzz, which we don't quite have so much now, because the internet is the epicenter of the world's buzz, and the cities of the world are kind of satellites to the internet.
I mean, that's what
a large degree.
We did it on purpose, like 20 years ago. The articulation or the purpose of Casa Amorati was because of the joint or the interconnectedness that we all have. We can do everything on Zoom now, how can we reinstate this sense of gathering in a physical space and we modeled it very clearly on the artists, gatherings in Paris in the 1800s, 1880s, 1890s, Van Gogh and all this kind of stuff. And then the 1920s, that whole hovering around the literary and art scene. And, in Paris, they had Shakespeare's,
Shakespeare and Co.
and
Yeah,
Co. And, and Joyce and all those would hover around there, Virginia Woolf and stuff like that. And so there's a draw to that, and that because your art is elevated when you're in communion with others, as opposed to by yourself. I mean, Jackson Pollock went into his farm and slotted all these paintings by himself for 20 years, but it's elevated because you're inspired. So Matisse and Picasso were always looking over each other's shoulders, going, "Well, dang it all, what the heck, should I copy him or not?" And friends and rivals at the same time. And so when Matisse got so old that he couldn't paint anymore, he just started to cut out paper shapes and stick them on, glue them. And Picasso going, yeah, maybe I should do something like that too.
oh,
Anyway,
so I mean, we started off. What can a lonely guy in suburbia do to bring a few friends around to his place? And now we're talking about
I wanted to recreate it. And Andy's
you. So your intention, your upwards looking intention. How do we create something that's so alive that's going to propel all of us through friendship and competition into greater understandings of what makes us alive? This is an upward pointing question that you have,
yeah,
right? And then around that, people start to show up.
correct. Build it and they will come. Yeah. And
And
that's what we wanted. Modeled on the Impressionist era, modeled on the Bloomsbury era, whatever they call it, in the
in
writer,
London, yeah.
and then model it on the salon culture, and model it on Andy Warhol's factory. And we had this whole glorious vision of how we wanted it to feel and flow, and I guess we accomplished it to a degree, because we did look at the various characters we had come through our door. We had some cartoon characters that are larger than life. There's guys like Kelly and Steve Pickison, some of those guys back in the day that they're just larger than life people. They're not normal, which is in a good way.
Mm.
They have their own force of gravity, and we had
So
these.
I want to ground this back into some specifics that people can do that they're listening to this and wondering, how do I get a bit more of this and go in that direction? So going back to the first question that I shared earlier, someone is typically a satellite and not a planet but they've been part of these spaces and vibes. But they feel now, right, I do want to be a bit more of a central figure. I do want to have more of this, and I want to instigate some things. Is it a question of charisma, or can the introvert or the person who has been a satellite acquire a few things to have a bit more conviction in their invitation?
Well,
And what would they do?
you got to care less about how you're perceived, fundamentally, and you've got to just stretch out of your comfort zone, especially if you've been. But I think that there's people that naturally have that impulse in them that they want to create this kind of thing, and there's other people that naturally have it in them that they want to be around it. And you don't need to be one or the other, and neither one is better than the other. You could be around the energy, because as well as I do, when we do an interactive type of class or something like that, some of the guys are really talkative and gregarious and really leaning into it, and other guys are just content, and they are content and they love it to sit and listen to the discourse going on, and they're fine. So it's not like you need to. So this questioner, if he feels he's an introvert and he wants to break out of that, it's because he has it already. He has a
Mm.
natural ability and an impulse already. He has the predilection for this already. So he just wants to know how he can manifest what he's already feeling. Not that you can embody that a new feeling of that in somebody who just is content to be around the energy.
Mhm.
So if he got it already, then he's got to just recognize that he does, and put himself out of his comfort zone and go out there and explore and realize that you don't have to have answers to start a conversation. You have to have good questions.
Mm.
I said on
You know,
stage, I don't have answers. But I ask really good questions. You know,
the phrase just came to my mind, which is it's left my mind just as quickly. Write the book you wish existed. It's almost like write the community, or write the invitation, write the community that you wish existed, and discover what already is
correct.
the conversation you want to be having, and then put that your call and your desire to have that conversation, put that out into the world. That's the central cohering
Yeah,
unit or action.
yeah, and try and create it in your, that if you are curious about something, if this listener is curious about something and wants to know, and you put that out. I mean, maybe your high school buddy, that you go drinking beers with every weekend. Maybe he's curious too. Maybe he's not. But you will find people if you just put this into the air of yourself. You will find people that are gathered around it, and you'll start to date women that, like, I couldn't possibly date a woman that isn't interested in this philosophical conversation. It just exists. I'm not attracted to her. It's not like I would find out and then, she's not one of these, so I have to break up with her now. I just
Mm.
wouldn't approach her in the first place. It's just I can feel there's nothing there, you know. So
A lot of answers being revealed here. I want to share a couple more before we wrap up. From Conrad, who you might remember, he went from Poland to Argentina to live his
yes,
Walden Pond, and it seems like he's still out there.
Golden
So
Pond.
Conrad shares a few things, but here in Argentina, you mentioned Argentina last time. Social life is the number one value, and gatherings for asado, barbecue, especially during the weekend, is commonplace. So creating community is much easier. And I attest to that in Argentina. The collective is such a force. But just as a point of comparison, I did a kind of university year in Argentina. And when I left my English British university, I was invited to play a football game, and they were like, "We're a player down. We need anyone, just to come and be the 11th man. Will you do this?" And I walked into the dressing room. Yeah, and out of all the players there, I think three people shook my hand, and a couple of them even shook my hand and looked away, as they shook my hand. Like the
Yeah,
ice cold dismissiveness about a new guy coming into our male social circle was
yeah,
it was just terrible. And I was invited to play football in Argentina, and I'm like this complete outsider gringo with my wonky Spanish and all the rest of it. But some of the boys took me down to play football, and there was 11 on our team, 11 on the other team. The 22 other people there each come round one by one and shook my hand and said welcome, even if they had no follow-up question. It was just like I had to shake hands with everyone in the place and look everyone in the eye. So I'm kind of knitted it. There's an energetic exchange from the beginning. And then after that, it's what are you doing this weekend? We're going to this club on Friday. There's a barbecue on Saturday. So it's to be engulfed by a collective
that's amazing.
quality is,
Yeah,
I mean, you never forget that once you've been fully embraced, actually, by a culture. Um,
I know what
it's
you
a
mean.
completely different way of living. So, so Conrad says, I'm still in he's creating a community. I'm still in the process, but I think throwing out invitations without expectation is one of the fundamental principles. Another is regularity.
In other words, people know that it's happening again and again and again. Yeah, I guess that could be true. Yeah, yeah,
And then throwing out invitations without expectation.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Agreeing
that
with those principles.
the old joke. This old guy says, another guy, "Hey, you want to come to my house for a party?" It's going to be some drinking and fighting and having sex and stuff like that. Okay, who's all coming? Well, just so far you and me. Where did I see that in a movie or something?
And then Conrad finishes off. He has a recommendation, a book by Peter Block called Community, which I've
Oh,
dived into actually. Yeah, so a consultant friend of mine, has lived and traveled with Peter Block, who has done similar things actually to what you're describing today.
oh,
Um, he's been involved in business and business consulting, but also different forms of community, genuine community. So that's a good book to give a different perspective to what you've
oh.
shared already today. So good to hear from you, Comrade. And then I think from Jan, are the four commitments the best principles to start with right now? So you mentioned the four commitments: ease and delight, beauty and order, curiosity and empathy, invitations only. Are these the best
You call them agreement.
places for agreements? Okay. Is this the best place to start off?
Well, I remember when Hans and I came up with that. We were in the house. We had girls with us. We were in Montreal actually, and this is the kind of the student house that we were writing on the walls. The girls were drawing, doodling on the walls all day, and we had this one bare wall, and Hans and I wrote it up there. What are the four? What are the commitments of this space? The agreements. Anybody that comes into the space has to honor this, and we banged it out in one draft. One, I he was writing on the wall, and I said the first one is ease and delight. And I just said these four things that I never thought of before. And they became our credo. They became our guiding light. I still have it on the website. I still have it on, Facebook group. It's still the motto of our Amorati, um, the gatherings we have. You have to honor these agreements. Ease and delight is number one. Beauty and order is number two. Curiosity and empathy has to be in this space. And invitation is only. If we reserve the right to kick you out if you dishonor any of these other previous agreements. And so, yeah, crazy, man. That's a great place to start. To be a good theme for your home, your family, your wife, and your two children. Here's our guiding principles, children. Four agreements of our
And then,
home.
and then Jan's question that he would like to explore more, which I think was very much the question we led out with last time. How do I become a man who can build and support this kind of community?
Well, like I said, you already are. If you have the question, you already have something burning in you and buried in you. You wouldn't ask this question. There's a lot of guys that are listening to this and just nodding their head, but they don't have that burning in you. So you already are this person. Now you just have to manifest in your own ways. We had the three commitment questions of Amorati graduation.
Mm.
Remember that? And one of the commitment questions we asked the guys they had to handshake on was, I commit to living my life according to the principles of the art and Amorati philosophy, however I choose to manifest it. And that last phrase is important because we could say to live this life of an Amorati ars Amorati philosophy, you have to do this, you have to travel, you have to do this. But maybe I want to manifest it in my life with my children and growing turnips in my garden, and that's it's as valid as anything. So however you choose to manifest it, however you want to live your life is fine. Married, polyamorous, single, living in the wind, digital nomad, CEO, entrepreneur. That's how you're manifesting. It doesn't matter any of those things. It matters the underlying feeling of desiring beauty, trying to manifest that for the loved ones around you, and trying to, so we would do this by Vespers that I talked about. We would do that by these four agreements. And so, yeah, this is something we should articulate and write all this out so that people can have a framework, because I think it's fantastic.
Mm. It seems to me today, as it comes to this question, how do I be become the man who can build and support this kind of community, it seems that just knowing what the central enlivening conversation that you want to have in your life is, if you understand that, and then you start to have it without hairs on your tongue,
Yeah.
without withholding and dampening down the how sharp your curiosity is about it. If you know what that conversation is, then that's your desire to have that conversation, which is your essential curiosity. That's going to be the thread that makes the whole community happen for you,
Correct. Yeah.
because you can't help but not try and have that conversation with others anyway.
And head toward it, and consciously, you know, just desire it, just want it that bad that you start to your mind will start to open up to the opportunities and the people that it'll start to manifest for yourself. So
Here's what I was thinking as well just now.
she's
We come across some men who say things like, I go all around the world, but I can't find a woman who is interested in what I'm interested in, or I've been everywhere under the sun, but I don't find my like-minded people, and so on and so on. I am remembering back to the last time I was single, actually, just before I met Adelia, and there was a really nice period where I was 6 or 7 days a week. I was with a different woman, and everything was beautiful. Like the
mm,
stuff we had in common, and the fact that there was a reason for us to have a conversation, right? Like we're very, 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 very connected with a lot of different women and a lot of different people, and I felt maximally in something in that time of my life. I felt like I was at the center of something and connected to something, place of belonging with a lot of people. And I felt abundance in the sense that, not that I was just surrounded by women, but everyone that I met seemingly had this conversation in common with me, so that I didn't have to try to do anything or be anything, but just by having the conversation I wanted to have, I was already with women.
mm,
I had some guy friends too, but an outsized number of women around me that also wanted to have the same conversation as well. And
they're
then
drawn.
everything became very, very easy. And it has me reflect on this whole kind of internet era of seduction and how to connect and seduce and attract and all this kind of thing. Um, which is such a heavy load, trying to seduce someone that you don't have a fundamental conversation in common with. It's like, sure, you can say some things and do some things and get some attraction going, get her into your house for a few days. But if you don't have a central conversation you're curious about, there's really little to keep this kind of magnet and this file together. You're just going to float
Back.
apart to other ends. So I'm left meditating on how easy it is to have profound connections with people when you know what you like to talk about and you know what you want to know in this world, and how difficult, like what a slugfest it must be to traipse around the world and try to connect.
Yeah,
How can I build this bridge and ask clever questions to try and connect with this person that I don't? Well, obviously, if you don't get the alive force of what you really want to know out, it's always going to be laborious.
that's right. And if you are front and center that your goal in life is to try and maximize your your relationship with the transcendent and with beauty and in your excellence, and try and head forth towards your, what you see in your horizons, that becomes your driving force as opposed to trying to get women or trying to get this. And then that's how the idea of people being caught up in the same adventure as you, as opposed to them being the adventure, which I've talked about for a lot of times, right? It's like you're caught up in your own mystique. And if you have this vision you're trying to understand, when you talk to a woman, you'll have a flavor in your voice and in your smile that wouldn't be there if you're just the guy that's working your job and trying to make it work and paying off your bills. It has some other flavor to it. It has another kind of aura around you that says, I'm on a mystical journey. I'm a student of life. I don't have it figured out, but I'm sure trying. because she wants the same thing too. And she will be caught up in that, in the energy of that, and drawn. That's part of the, maybe the biggest part of the attraction of men who have this kind of spirit, that, you know, women are drawn into that because they're caught up in something larger than life, and they want to be that too. Because her job sucks, her boss is mean, you know, family's critical. So
I feel like we've taken these fundamental topics of curiosity, aliveness, and passion or bliss, as you call it, and
yeah,
just kind of threaded them all the way through different territory.
yeah,
And in particular, like obviously like meeting, dating, attraction, relationship,
all
but
the same thing.
all the way that through this whole community, sparking a community, a sense of salon, a sense of belonging, um, is entirely woven together by that thread. What are you
100%.
absolutely enlivened and curious about? What is the bliss that you want to follow? That's the
100%.
the unifying force.
Infuses your whole experience. Whatever you're doing in life, whatever your career is, it's why your family gathers around you and wants to look up to you and wants to say, I'm proud because this is my father. That's what's missing. And this is the, you know, restoring beauty. I mean, our whole thing. I don't have your card here. I'll show you my card. It's the whole subtext. Oh, I don't have it here. But it's the whole subtext of what we're doing is like restoring beauty into the consciousness of our experience. Beauty exists. It's not like it needs saving from us because it, you know, it exists independent of us. But we now bring it back into our consciousness because we've forgotten our communion with beauty. So that's the whole thing, and it's infused through everything that you said, Jordan. Your gatherings, your living space, your relationship, what you're doing manifests in your life, which you're trying to create. Some guys out there want to be coaches or share what they've learned with others. It's all the same thing. It's all manifest in this. It's art, it's music, it's everything. So
Super. I think that's a natural place to wrap up. Let us know if you have comments, stories, experiences that relate to this, or if you have further questions. I think we're getting to the essence of something here.
yeah, that's for sure. We need to front and center, foreground these things that we, and we've always been there, but we just take it for granted. Because when I tell these stories about, you know, the 4 agreements of Casa Amorati, my assumption is that everybody already knows it but there's a whole bunch of new guys have never heard it before. So we need to foreground these life principles and vespers and the things we consciously created in our own journey to hand to others as traditions. So I think we should we need to make sure, Jordan, as we go forward in this new phase of Ars Amorati, that the traditions are front and center. They're very important. Again, there's a lot of meaning around everything. There's a lot of new words we created, not a lexicon, a new language we've invented around these concepts. There's symbols that we've created, you know, that have meaning. It's not just an arbitrary thing. It has deep-seated meaning that came out of something. And we need to talk about that and share all this so that others can take this kind of things into their families, into their home, and the community. We should really foreground our traditions and our symbols and really prominently make it, because they're well steeped. They're historically part of our journey, and we can hand it to others because it's cool and it's fun. All right.
Thank you, Zan. Thanks everyone for joining. Catch you next time.